Hey folks, welcome back to Fresh Produce. I'm Pete from BTI. We're back with the second part of our two-part episode with Ken from Vittoria. He's the tire designer and has so much information to share, so let's get right into it. All right, Ken, so BTI really has a background that's so deep in mountain bike world. So I'd love to talk about kind of your newest mountain bike tires and some of the history that's come along with that. Like, I was racing at the local level 10 years ago almost, and some folks were on Martellos at that time. How's this tire changed since then, and how's it like led you to the newest tires out here?
I mean, all of this is a snowball effect, right? We take all our quality control, our design capability, and all that, and again, we're trying to solve problems in a new way for trail enduro type riders. And so you're talking about a much more aggressive tread profile, much more burly casings, things like this. And one of the things that is difficult is to design something that is, not a compromise in a way, right? So the first thing is you want to make sure we nail the sizing. So Vittoria is a member of ETRTO. We're really, ISO compliant with as far as like the tire size for the rim size. So we really try to make sure that we nail the sizing. Mountain bike rims have gotten wider recently. And so, of course, if you put any tire on a wider rim, it's going to measure wider, right? But in terms of the ETRTO stated size, ours are very, strictly designed with that in mind. Now, from a tread design standpoint, because mountain bikers want to know about tread design. This is like a big topic, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we solve problems for mountain bikers through tread design? The Martello, I love that you bring this up because that's actually the first tire that we use what we call progressive sipe width. So check this out. So in the center knob, there's 3 sipes, right? Yeah. And you'll notice there's a small, a medium, and a large sipe.
Yeah.
So think about this. A bigger sipe, meaning like there's more air in the middle of the sipe, right? That flexes more than a smaller sipe.
Okay. So that's on the back side of the knob, kind of.
Yeah, so it's a progression in that on the leading edge of that knob, as the tire rolls, you have the smaller sipe. So that sipe provides compliance and grip when you're trying to scramble, climb up something, right?
Yeah.
But then if you push on the front of that knob, you'll see it's very compliant, it's flexible. But when you press on the back of that knob, that big sipe flexes more. Sure. So it doesn't slow the tire down when it rolls. When that tire rolls, it's first going to hit that small sipe, and then it rolls up past that the medium sipe and the bigger sipe. But then when you hit your brakes and basically all those forces shift to the trailing edge of that knob, it's going to be super gummy.
Yeah.
But if we just made if it was that gummy everywhere, the tire would roll really slow. It'd wear out really fast. This tire lasts a long time and it rolls really fast, but it's still super grippy because of progressive sipe width. So take that exact concept and turn it sideways for the side knobs.
Right.
So when you're cornering, you're on the inside edge of the side knob. It's called the effective edge, right? Yeah. So one of the things that you'll see on some tire brands is if you just simply press on the inside effective edge of that knob, it'll flop over. Our tires don't do that. They compress in an accordion kind of way because of this progressive sipe width. Yeah, so if you press on the inside effective edge of that Martello, it's going to be really gummy, but you'll notice the outside edge of that knob is super stable.
Yeah, it doesn't move a whole lot. And I also see that the tread itself really slopes down toward the sidewall. It doesn't slope right back in toward the cap of the tire, I guess. So that's also giving more support in that effective direction, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, there's like a really nice, it's like buttressed on the outside of that. So it prevents it from just flopping over. Because the worst thing is when you're taking a corner and everything is in a controlled way, and then you just get to a point where you don't have 4C, you don't have progressive sipe width, and it just folds over and you lose traction. So it's really something that's been a simple thing to implement, but just like those fish scales on the Terreno, this is like a simple thing that you can just mold into the tread pattern. It makes a big difference.
Totally. That's pretty cool. Cool. I've got one of those right here as well.
Awesome. So yeah, that tire, that's been really something that has been an Enduro winning tire for us. I everything from the Eastern States Cup Series. It's been, won multiple times on this in the pro level by Adam Morse, as well as the, Enduro World Series proven. That's a tire that has a lot of tech in it. So, for instance, one thing that I love to call out on the Mazda is some tires you'll see in this category, because they're so aggressive, tire companies will put a leading edge ramp on the center tread, right? And that's designed to say, okay, well, it's a really aggressive tread profile. It's really deep, but we want to try to make it roll faster somehow. So they put a ramp on it. Well, think about when you're trying to climb with a ramp on the leading edge of your center tread. It's not going to do anything.
That should be digging in. Yeah, it should be digging in, but it's kind of just a smoother surface, so it's not going to dig in, right?
Right. So to get around that, we put a staircase on the leading edge.
Yeah, really visible right on here.
Yeah, and that staircase at speed rolls just like a ramp, right? It rolls right up just like a ramp, no problem. But it's slow, high torque, kind of like climbing maneuvers. You're trying to get up something super technical, and you're just like, you're fighting for that last bit of traction before you worry about the tires, right? This staircase in that scenario digs in, and you actually have two effective edges to climb up a scenario like that.
Yeah, perfect. It's really clear that that's just going to add an extra little fingernail grab in on those loose surfaces. That's pretty cool. I also noticed that all the siping on this tire is kind of going front to back. There's not as much the other direction, but that staircase sort of takes care of some of the duties that the siping was doing on the Martello, right?
Yeah, a lot of people look at a Mazda and they think it's only meant for front tire use. That tire was actually designed for front and rear, and it works tremendously well for both. As a front tire, you'll notice there's a really generous side channel between the center tread and the side tread.
Yeah.
And that allows for room for dirt and all of that to pack in against that effective edge on the side knob to create that grip. It's like it allows like the cleat to dig in the ground and pack in and create that traction. You'll also notice the progressive sipe width on the Mazda. If you push on the inside effective edge of that, it's super, super gummy, but it's very stable on the outside of that side knob still.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's not visible, but I can really feel that sipe sort of collapsing where my finger, collapsing is not the right word, but it's conforming where my finger's pushing. And then but the whole knob is not moving a whole lot. So it's supportive, but still gripping or allowing my finger to kind of dig in there. Pretty cool. Cool. And I guess this brings me, I happen to be holding here the Mazda Trail tire, and we had a Martello Enduro tire. I mentioned in another video how well I think these are labeled, but I also would love to hear your thoughts on how that applies to real riders. I'm not racing enduro. What does this mean to me if it says enduro tire on there?
Yeah, for sure. So we need to be able to provide tires for the most extreme use case in any sort of intended use, right? So for enduro, it needs to be World Cup ready. It needs to be Enduro World Series ready. It needs to be able to, compete on that level. Does everybody need that for normal riding? Well, no. And, all of that extra, casing material and for instance, the Enduro casing has a 2-ply reinforced casing with a sidewall insert molded in, and it's just much more reinforced. And that it is a bit heavier because of that, right? So, if you're just someone who likes to ride aggressively, but you're not riding maybe at the rate of speed as Enduro World Series person. Mm-hmm. The trail version is a lot lighter, which is going to be a lot more compliant. If you run an insert with it, like an airliner insert, it's going to be, a nicely tuned system that gives you a progressive feel as it compresses, and can really suit your needs in that way. So, the trail casing is going to be a single ply 120 with sidewall protection and an APF insert as well. So you go from a single ply reinforced to a 2-ply reinforced between the trail and the enduro. And otherwise, the tread is the same and all that. And you have all the Vittoria, quality control and all that comes into play with all of these tires. But you really have options to pinpoint, again, the best way to solve the problem for that rider in that case.
Yep. So yeah, I guess point being, you don't need to be an enduro racer, but if you're riding that type of terrain or those speeds, absolutely, you probably already know you need a heavier tire to hold up to your use. So
yeah, if you're a bike park person, like you're just going up to the bike park all the time, the enduro casing is going to give you like almost like a set it and forget it kind of solution, because you're not worried about like durability at all with that, right? But if you're someone who's like doing some climbing, but you still want to like ride rowdy stuff, that trail option, especially if you use an airliner insert with it, is really a great system.
Cool. I really think this is like easy to understand for me. Maybe I didn't discuss it very well here today, but it sure just makes sense, and it's not a whole lot of technologies, thrown out at the consumer. I think it's pretty easy for most folks to understand. So really good job with that. So Ken, I want to talk just a minute about this Corsa Next. We touched on the compounds inside of it, but this is like the Tour de France winning tire, right? At least in the tread. So, but this one specifically is a little bit different. What's going on inside this tire, and why does it apply to like our audience so well?
Absolutely. So this is every bit a Corsa. It's going to be, it looks like a Corsa. It has the Corsa tread design. It feels supple. It rolls fast. It's lightweight. It grips well. All these things that you know about our Corsa family of products at the highest level of race use, right?
Yep.
There's a big difference in the Corsa Next, and that is it's made from nylon instead of cotton. So this is a Corsa that you can ride, every day. You can train on it. You can still race on it. It broadens the use of our Corsa family into a realm that, previously people might not wanted to use their expensive cotton special road race tires in training or things like this. The wet weather grip is a nice feature of this tire, obviously with the compound, as we mentioned, but also it's just something that, if you have one set of tires and you want to be able to race on the weekends and not have to switch them, this is an excellent choice. It's sort of like your daily driver sports car, if you will.
Totally. Yes. The previous Corsas, the most top level, are so light, and the cotton casing means they're just not durable enough to ride every day, right? It's a race day only tire in most cases.
Well, many people do, and you have to be realistic about it. I mean, cotton is chosen because it's so supple and that the thread is so fine and all of these things. But not to say that they're not durable, but the Corsa Next brings the durability to a new level in the Corsa family.
Perfect. Okay, that's a good way to think about it, and makes perfect sense to me. As not a pro racer, this is going to be absolutely all the performance, even in a race situation, I might need, but have a little peace of mind to it, behind it too. So
yeah, it's, cool. a lot of consumers, they're not, they're not pro racers. They don't have like the wheel truck with all their, wheels with different tires already mounted up, right? They got one bike, they got one set of wheels, and they just want a tire that's going to give them, that ultra high end performance when they go for a ride, or if they want to try an event on the weekend. But they don't have to worry about changing them. They can just, ride that tire in whatever kind of scenario they're going to be riding in. It's also available in a huge range of sizes, especially those larger sizes. So, for the people who have disc brake road bikes and, you want something that's a bit more comfortable, a bit more tread profile, we have options in this Corsa Next for you.
Yeah, so I happen to have here in my hand the 700 by 34. So that's a pretty wide road tire. Can you talk about like the shape of that and like how much of that rubber is on the ground? What are you losing when you go to the tire this wide versus what you're gaining?
Well, the cool thing about a tire like a 34 in a high quality road tire is that tire is going to be very supple, right? So you have a lot of sidewall, you have a high quality material that's already going to be supple and feel anyway, right? But by adding more size, you have more of it to flex. So you can ride this tire at lower pressures without worrying about it. You have a greater contact patch when the tire is loaded, say like in the corner and the tire deforms, you'll have a greater contact patch for grip and things like this. But when you're riding in an upright position and the tire is not, say, loaded from, say, a cornering force or something like that, the tire will be sort of like less deformed, and it's not going to get draggy because of the nature of the casing itself is very high quality. It's very supple. So that air pressure will support you, the rider, and the weight of your bike and everything without just like sagging in that deformation. But when it's loaded, because it's more supple, it promotes deformation to create that grip. And so that's the reason that it's quite a special tread. It also works tremendously well in the tubeless version with Airliner Road, which gives you then a run flat solution, right? So we don't expect you to get flats. We, in an ideal scenario, we don't expect anybody to get flats, right? You have the Vittoria universal sealant in there, and it's all like, it all works well together as a system. However, sometimes it just happens.
It happens to all of us, yeah. This is something I really wanted to bring up, and I kind of forgot, but this is such a unique product, really important to talk about, that a road tire liner, not a lot of other competitors are really thinking about this, but it's a unique place to sit. And I'd love to hear like where you think the best use is for this too, and kind of applies to everyone, right?
It really does. And the cool thing about all our liners is that they're compatible with any road tire. And all of our liners are compatible with any other tire brand, just whether it's gravel or mountain bike or anything. But the cool thing about Vittoria Airliner Road is that the material that the liner is made out of is different than the material we use in the gravel or the mountain bike. Yeah. This actually compresses. So hear me out on this. This is crazy. So again, solving problems. If we had a liner that was going to fill the internal cavity of that tire, it would affect rolling resistance. There would be friction when that little tire is compressing a lot. And everybody loves the suppleness of Vittoria tires. Well, if we had a liner that stayed, full the whole time, it would actually hurt rolling resistance in this way.
It compromised some of the other kind of important aspects of road tire, right? You need it to feel a certain way. You don't want to change that a whole lot. So
to get around that, road tires are used at a higher pressure, right? They're low volume compared to a mountain bike tire, and they're high pressure compared to a mountain bike tire. So this liner, when you pump up your road bike tire to anywhere, in the usable range, it's going to be a higher pressure range than on a mountain bike. The liner compresses and it sits directly between the beads on your rim belly. And so the cool thing about this is that it provides a bead lock for these high pressure road tires. Now, think about this. If you were to burp a road tire,
it's catastrophic.
It'd be catastrophic, right? It'd be a bad thing. And the reason is because, again, it's low volume, high pressure. So the air you have in there would escape very quickly, right? So you do not want to burp a road tubeless tire. This liner provides a bead lock, number one. And that in itself is just like a viable benefit. If it did nothing else, that's great, because this is the crazy thing. These liners, they weigh less than the sealant inside your tubeless road tire.
That's wild. And I think that would be like the against argument that so many folks would have. Like, I couldn't put a liner in my road tire. It's going to be way too heavy. But when you're talking about the weight of the sealant, I mean, that's nothing. And I think it gets past that discussion point really easily.
Super quick, right? So how many milliliters of sealant do you typically put in a road tire?
Yeah, gosh, it's like 40, 50 milliliters or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, on a lower size road tire, it's probably more like 30-ish, something like this. Okay. Yeah, 30, 40, right? Yeah. So per milliliter, sealant it almost weighs similar to water. It's basically like a gram per milliliter, right? In terms of weight. So this liner weighs 25 grams. This liner, I mean, I'm not making that up. It literally weighs less than the sealant in your tire. Absolutely. So from the bead lock, that's like a major benefit, right? So imagine that somehow you run over razor blades and you somehow cut the tire, or you break a spoke and it pokes through your rim tape or something. You have an air loss of some sort.
Yep.
Well, the pressure releases, right? Yeah. So the foam expands and fills the tire and keeps that bead lock, but it then fills the tire enough to then allow you to ride home at a reasonable speed. So it's quite unique, because one of the first pushbacks that dealers hear on tubeless road tires is, what if I get a flat? I don't want to deal with that on the side of the road, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing that I always say to people is, you spent months training and you're going on this crazy trip somewhere to do this event. It could be a wine tour. It could be a race. It could be an Ironman. Yeah. Whatever this event is, the last thing you want to do is get a flat once you've spent all this time training and traveling and all this stuff. This is like an easy solution. It's cheap insurance and it weighs nothing. So that's been a really cool factor on Airliner Road. And, it's been super popular for that reason.
So is it hard to install because of that, like that beadlock factor? That's sometimes the pushback on some other liners, at least on the mountainside. These things are so hard to install, but especially on the road side, like it's probably going to be in there for longer. You're not taking it on and off as much. Maybe that's less of an issue, but tell me about it. I haven't ever installed one. So
yeah, so we actually make a kit that has like a special like soft jaw like set of like pliers, which enable you to like kind of grab the tire and pull it over and get a lever under it. There's a technique.
As with all liners, right?
Yeah, right. There's a technique for all your dealers out there. It's a tricky thing, as you know. You spend enough time around bikes. I'll figure it out. I got it. This is one of those times you want to read the instructions. Yeah. There's a technique. If you follow the technique, it's quite easy to put on and take off. If you're just going to go at it the normal way, there's a learning curve for sure. But as you said, with road tires, people keep those tires on their bike for a long time, and so it's certainly worth the effort. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that was really cool, important to bring up, and such a unique product out there. I hope that we can get a ton more, road riders, road shops interested in that road liner. It's super cool. So again, thanks so much, Ken. We'll wrap this thing up. And
yeah, anytime, man. It's been an honor to be on your show, and thank you so much for your time.
Love having you on the show. I hope that our viewers also got a ton out of this conversation. I think we have Vittoria tires that are going to suit a ton of different riders out there. If you want to try one on your bike, make sure you ask at your local bike shop and tell them BTI sent you.